There was a recent interview with Volkswagen CEO in China, and he, echoed what I've been saying. Legacy auto is currently being disrupted in a very big and alarming way in the world's largest auto market. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to have you here. I'm sure many of you know. Herbert Diess said when asked who his competitors were in Europe, that they were not BMW, not Mercedes, not Toyota, not Ford or Honda or anyone else in the legacy auto sphere. But he said Tesla and China. 40% of all Chinese cars made by Chinese car companies in China over the last few months were electric. 3% of all cars made by legacy auto in China were electric. You can see sales figures are totally changing. BYD just took second place in China last month. That's never happened before. Huge disruption is happening before our eyes. The Western media are not even talking about it. I find that strange. We have grown the industry, but it was very much in terms of technology transfer, a one-way street. Whereas nowadays, alongside our strategy, it's a two-way one. We will certainly develop here in China technologies that will find their ways into the world. So Volkswagen CEO in China is saying that the West brought a lot of technology into China and it was a one-way street. All the technology was coming from the world, the rest of the world, from Europe, the US potentially, and going into China. Now he's saying it's a two-way street. In other words, the West is actually taking that technology out of China at the same time as China is still taking the technology in. I'm not so sure if that's really true now. I think it's more of a one-way street going the other way towards the West from China, based on the technology that I'm seeing in a lot of these Chinese automobiles, which isn't even in 95% of legacy auto vehicles right now. But anyway, Volkswagen Group, who are the leading foreign automaker in China, which is pretty significant considering it's the world's largest auto market by a pretty big margin, and they've been leading for the past 40 years, faces strong headwinds in the world's largest auto market. It helped pioneer with iconic nameplates like the Santana and the Jetta. And you can see they do face some pretty big headwinds considering the fact that BYD just took over their second place. Now, Volkswagen hold first and second with two different JVs. They have a JV with FAW, which is in first. They have a JV with SAIC, which was second place, and BYD took over that second place position in February. Having just unveiled the much-anticipated ID. Buzz, and with a Trinity representing its next generation of EVs on the horizon, Europe's largest automaker, in fact the second largest automaker in the world, is in the midst of a massive transformation from a traditional legacy automaker to a software-driven e-mobility pioneer. It's a big change for the company, but at least they're trying to make it, unlike Toyota, who will, of course, lose significant market share over the course of the next decade. Now, the German automaker Volkswagen is playing catch-up in EVs while navigating the ongoing chip shortage and a sporadic outbreak of COVID-19 cases in China, which have significantly impacted its output and sales performance over the last 12 months. So what happened? Well, as a result, group-wide sales fell 14%, with the core Volkswagen brand taking most of the brunt as its MQB-based models were over-proportionately affected by the chip shortage. This prompted Volkswagen Group China CEO Dr. Stefan Wollenstein to describe 2021 as the most challenging year in the company's history in China. Now, Volkswagen still did actually sell 3.3 million vehicles in China, 3.3 million, even though their sales fell 14%. That's a big number, and they don't want to lose that. It's confronting now a new reality. Homegrown Chinese brands that were chasing from behind have now either caught up or surpassed Volkswagen in many aspects of the competition, especially when it comes to electric vehicles. Though still ahead as a whole in terms of market share, Volkswagen and other foreign automakers need to adapt like never before. But I think it could be too late. Now, Dr. Wolfenstein said, according to Car News China, China has finally made it. What we are currently seeing is that China gets into a normal pattern of who is relevant in this market and also what position the Chinese market has on a global scale. He made these comments in an exclusive interview with AutoZing on February the 14th while responding to a question on where the Chinese auto market stands as far as competition and global influence are concerned. As someone who has witnessed the changes firsthand over many years in China, spanning over a dozen years, including stints at both Volkswagen's joint ventures, SAIC Volkswagen and FAW Volkswagen, he is very qualified to provide a perspective on what is really going on right now in China. He said, two strange patterns have characterized China's auto market recently. It is the only big automobile producing country where domestic Chinese players played a minor role in terms of market share. And foreign OEMs and suppliers have always been at the forefront in terms of technology leadership, innovation, and sales. But that's changing according to the CEO. The share of indigenous brands and OEMs in the Chinese market will be in the order of around 50%, which is a kind of normality that we observed in the rest of the world, he said. We see in the electric vehicle market, and certainly over the years to come, it will be also find its way into the overall market. Not all the Chinese brands we see today, but a selection of them will also be permanently in China's top 10, maybe even take the top 5 positions. So Volkswagen CEO is basically saying, Legacy Auto, you're screwed in China. I wanted to use a different word then because I really don't think screwed does justice to what's about to happen in China. On the technology side, in terms of electrification, autonomous driving, and connectivity, China is becoming a leading nation with leading companies like CATL and BYD in the battery space, Huawei in the smart connectivity space, and mid-sized startups that are starting to play an important global role, such as NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, Leapmotor, and many others. And that's according to Dr. Wolfenstein, who also believes that China's political decoupling is partially helping to fuel a trend in which a new ecosystem in the auto market is being formed over the next decade, with Chinese companies permanently taking the lead. So, what does that mean? Instead of a one-way street where foreign companies like Volkswagen were importing technology into China to help grow the industry back in the early 2000s when he first came, Dr. Wolfenstein says it's now a two-way street where Volkswagen must strengthen local R&D capabilities and develop technologies in China that will find their way to the rest of the world. By the way, I should point out, China basically mastered how to build an electric car from the ground up using software, digital software, in a way that Tesla does before the West did it. That is an unquestioned fact. NIO and XPeng were doing this before Volkswagen was doing it, if you can even say they're doing it now. So honestly, I'm not really sure it's a two-way street now. I'm not sure how much Volkswagen has to add to give companies like these new EV companies in China. I'm not sure they can really take much away from Volkswagen. The CEO of Volkswagen in China said, "This is the most remarkable development I've seen in the last 14 years, that China has reached and surpassed the tipping point. Where from more of an import market in terms of technology, China is going into a very mature stage of also driving global trends." What have I been telling you? I've been telling you that China is going to take an enormous percentage of the global automotive market, and that's going to lead to potentially massive global instability, very affordable EVs for many of us, which is great. So a negative and a positive, and a very big change in power structure in the world. The means to manufacture vehicles is far more important than I think anyone realizes. One of the two things the Volkswagen Group did in 2021 was redefine its strategic roadmap for China until 2030, focus on innovation and R&D when it comes to electric vehicles, and provide China-specific products and services more quickly to meet market needs, including connectivity and automated driving. Volkswagen and We, for example, which will complete construction this year with the start of production expected in mid-2023, will serve as a new R&D hub for Volkswagen's electric vehicle activities in China. In addition, CARIAD, Volkswagen's in-house software unit, is also rapidly ramping up local hiring and activities. Now, in addition to strengthening its R&D capabilities in China, carnewschina.com says that Volkswagen is also working with upstart local Chinese companies like Wangxiang's A123 and DJI to further enhance its competency in the battery and autonomous driving fronts. But I want to point out one interesting fact here. One of Volkswagen's executives in China just said that Volkswagen is not doing what Tesla and other Chinese automakers are doing now, and that is giving people in China what they want. And this was only in a reference to the karaoke and the microphone scenario that Tesla is going through right now with huge demand for that product. And Volkswagen doesn't offer that, but many electric cars and car brands locally in China do. Volkswagen is bemoaning the fact that they're not in the position that Tesla are in terms of giving customers the features and software in their cars that they want. Now, getting back to A123. A123 is one of the 3 battery suppliers Volkswagen is working with in China. The others are CATL, with which all the MEB cars are based on, and Goshon High-Tech, which Volkswagen has invested into and will be one of the battery suppliers designated to develop Volkswagen's future unified cell. Now, I should point out the fact as well that it appears as though Goshon High-Tech will build the world's largest gigafactory to build for LFP batteries in the US within the next couple of years for Tesla. So that's another interesting development. Now, A123 was selected based on technical qualification and pricing. It will play into Volkswagen's small battery cell product portfolio. Along with CATL and Gotion, the three will help balance the expected 150 gigawatt hours in battery capacity Volkswagen will require by 2025. It aims to sell 1.5 million electric vehicles annually by then, according to Dr. Wolfenstein. Now, on the other hand, DJI's relationship was built off marketing cooperation for the launch of the Volkswagen Magotan back in 2016. And the Shenzhen-based drone maker had been considering expanding into the automotive sector with its sensor integration and its software development expertise. And conversations eventually turned into a project where a reasonably priced Level 2 assisted driving functionality will make its way into Volkswagen's vehicles next year, according to Dr. Wolfenstein. So that technology is not coming from the West, it's coming from within China. Asked if Volkswagen was ever interested in investing in a Chinese EV company, Volkswagen CEO in China said no, but reiterated its investment in Gotion High-Tech and JAC Group, the parent company of JAC, which has a minority stake in Volkswagen and WE that is 75% controlled by Volkswagen. By the way, JAC are the manufacturer of NIO's electric cars. However, Volkswagen say they remain open to partnerships between electric car companies and themselves in China. We have also now extended our partnership scope with other Chinese companies, which is not necessarily always an OEM, he said, alluding to the rumored Huawei autonomous driving unit acquisition that Volkswagen currently has no comment on. So we'll see where that goes. Now, he also said that Chinese consumers are now attracted by smart EVs that look much more progressive, offer the latest technological gadgets, and include high levels of automated driving features rather than simply connectivity of 3 to 4 years ago. In other words, he's saying that local automakers in the EV space actually have an advantage over Volkswagen right now. It's now turning in the last 18 months, I would say massively, into features like automated driving, he said. Volkswagen, however, has always prided itself on offering a well-balanced package, which apparently he thinks may not be resonating with Chinese consumers the way it has in the past. Now, realistically, if we have a look at Volkswagen's electric vehicle sales in China, they're the best of all legacy auto, but they're still not very good. In comparison, for example, Volkswagen delivered 14,000 EVs in China in December of last year, while Tesla delivered 70,000 and BYD delivered 93,000. Yeah, so they are definitely behind. And the CEO recognizes this. He says, "My sincere hope is that we will be able to double the sales on ID models this year, maybe even more." But even if they double sales, what's that going to be? 28,000 a month at best, compared to companies like Tesla and BYD, which will be producing over 100,000 a month? ID sales started roughly a year ago in China, starting with the ID4, and ended up selling just over 70,000 units for the entire year, less than the 80 to 100,000 units that were planned, and they say that that's because of the COVID-19 outbreak that happened towards the end of the year. That said, the entire group's battery electric vehicle sales in China more than quadrupled to over 92,000 units for the year. But like I said, BYD did that in a single month. In addition to that, companies which are considered EV startups, such as Xpeng, plan on delivering 300,000 EVs this year. And that's clearly quite a lot more than Volkswagen Group will deliver there this year. At the upcoming Beijing Auto Show, Volkswagen will lay out a plan to further expand its electric vehicle portfolio based on the MEB platform, aiming to launch at least one new model every year starting in 2023. Now, when he was asked about the long-term prospects of China's electric vehicle market, this is what the CEO said. He believes this year penetration will be over 20%, a target that China has set for 2025. By 2030, it could hit more than 40% in his view, as a conservative forecast, but he believes that 60% is the more likely number. Now, I think he's wrong. He's saying 60%. I think it's going to be 100% by 2030 in China. But even if it's at 60%, that means the majority of legacy auto will have gone extinct in China based on their current plans for the country over the next 8 years. Really, Legacy Auto is not planning on selling all that many EVs in China, as we can see from their current output there, which is minuscule. That is a significant concern for them. China has massively changed in the last 2 to 3 years, he said. And you need to be here on China's soil to figure things out. We are sending pictures, videos, and reports, but there is a difference between having a day-by-day living experience versus reading reports. Thanks for watching the channel. Let me know in the comment section below. What will this mean for Legacy Auto once they lose the world's largest auto market? When I say lose, I mean they're not going to lose it entirely, but they'll certainly lose at least 80% of their market share by the end of the decade. That's a lot of cars. We're talking a market of nearly 25 million cars per year. That's about 1/3 of the entire world global automotive market. And this is an interesting position for Legacy Auto to be in, and they're clearly not prepared. Let me know what you think. Can they bounce back? Will they pull off some sort of magical voodoo rabbit out of the hat act and actually start producing EVs en masse in China? I don't think they can, but who knows? I could be wrong. I'm just one person. Let me know what you think.